Okay, well, we got another interesting subject, really talking about pregnancy from Vedic perspective, and it would be quite nice to hear a bit of the Western perspective from you all really as we go along. As obviously we all know that really the importance, the beauty, and the need of pregnancy there, and it has to be to keep our life, our species, our this the life process, the creative process going on through. And in Vedic and Upanishadic culture, there is actually a whole range of practices that should be done pre-conception. Then once you conceive, there is a practice, sort of ritualistic practice that we do, and it goes through all the way up to 18 years of your child. So there are sort of practices. So there is like a long-term sort of commitment as a parent you take once you have made your mind up, I am going to have a child. Which is kind of quite interesting, for me, like understanding from that perspective is sort of really seeing yourself that you are committing to something, not just for a day or for a month or for years. You got that much long commitment, and sometimes you end up even having to look after them more than even 18 or 19. But yeah, that's a whole different thing. In from the Vedic perspective, I guess for me the first sort of event I really take from Mahabharata itself. I'm not sure how many of you heard about the scripture. Mahabharata is one of the longest epic on classical or ancient Indian history. And then the whole epic, the main part of the epic is about the battle that there was between the 5 brothers and then the 100 brothers of the other parents. And in that one part of the Mahabharata where Bhishma, the great granddad, he was educating his children. So now I'm talking about 105 prince he had. He was educating them all that there is social or moral responsibility you guys need to learn as, and if you're going to be the king of the country. And I do like the way he kind of brings some of these really simple but very profound sort of ideas, and he was sort of giving that to the authorities, like you got to have these in your mind. And in one of the practice, then he teaches them, I'm not going to go in all of them, but one of them was about conception, giving birth, and then how do you value or respect or look at that child that has been born into this life. So Bhishma, he classifies actually 7 different ways of conception. Now obviously they all mean same, please don't take me wrong, there is no any other way to get pregnant. But he was talking about 7 different aspects we can have when we have the conception. Now I guess literally think, the one conception is where you have a healthy relation and mutually both partners are talking to each other, I would love to have a baby. And both partners agree. So that's why he talks about the 7 different levels or the aspects of conception. The first one we have where there is a healthy relation between 2 people and there is a mutual understanding or agreement or acceptance, and then we get conception on that process. He said the second level of conception is it's sort of like when you are with someone in love or in relation. I guess back in time they were talking about marriage, but to me again when we think in where we all are, maybe the bringing the marriage word might not be appropriate for many people. So let's talk about just a relationship or partnership. So the second level they talk about, there is a partnership, there is a mutual relationship, but there is no actually sort of consensual, where the 2 partners or they both like discussed, okay, we would like to have a child, so they call it's out of love or lust. So we forget to use the protection for one day, and I'm sure everyone goes through that in relation. So then the second pregnancy, he says that you are conceived with your own partner, with your own relation, or your husband, your wife, but there is an element of lust in it. He said the third level, third category talks about when you are conceived, but you are forced by either your expectations, your family, your society, and I'm sure there is a huge amount that you might face. Your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, your mother, your father, or maybe your friends keep nagging you. Oh, are you going to have a child? Are you pregnant? Especially in old time, I think this is getting a bit less now, isn't it? No. Okay, there you go. I'm glad that someone is saying no, it's not getting less. So when, even though maybe even both partners don't really want it, but because of the social pressure, or maybe sometimes pressure of your partner, especially I guess women might get it more than men in that situation, where you are accepting it because of that some sort of external pressure on you. Yeah, come on.
Sorry, Shanti, can you clarify the second one? I'm not sure if I quite understood. Did you say that there's a healthy relationship,
Yeah.
but there's not a mutual understanding?
Yes, it's sort of like, sometimes people get conceived out of love or lust, but they were not really thinking, or they were not really expecting to get pregnant.
It wasn't really planned.
Yeah, it wasn't really planned. Yeah. Or even more than that, it wasn't just not planned, but they were not really willing, let's say like that. But sometimes, under that influence of the moment of love or lust, people just forget to do what they should be doing. So I think one of the guy a couple of years back, he was just telling, it was about, thinking like how to get pregnant. And they were like, I think we're thinking about how to get pregnant. I'm like, I guess you need to think more how not to get pregnant. So, when we're not thinking on that protection and how not to allow, sometimes people just lose that moment. And then the third level we got, where there is some kind of, I guess, force in it. And the force doesn't have to be, force can be just between parts. Sometimes maybe a woman wants to have a child, but the man is just like, I'm not ready for it. But at some point, he or she, or they both have to give up, because otherwise there's a threat in it, isn't it? If you don't want it, I will go somewhere else. And then the social threat, the social pressure is there too. So he said the third conception is through some sort of pressure that we accumulate.
So to accept it or to get through it, maybe?
We will come to that. Yeah, now I guess for me really, when we're talking once you already conceived. So it's kind of really, I don't know, for me it's not really the point of talking about acceptance or not acceptance. We're talking about once you already conceived. So he's talking about the different ways you can be conceived.
So you said the third one is so perhaps, I don't know, just from the social pressure
from anyone,
like difficulties then, or you're at the age now you should have a baby, or
yeah,
like that,
yeah. Then he comes to the next 3 or 4, I guess he talks a little bit more on. He said this, the fourth one he talks about when, especially when we talk about, like, let's say in modern time, we talk about teenage pregnancies. So there is no actual relation, but it's just the lust or the physical attraction, the sexual attraction drives two people in, and I guess there is no actual relation. It is like people have flings or whatever you want to call. So he said that the fourth level of conception is still there is a mutual acceptance in it. So there is no, again, sort of forceful sexual relation here. But then we can be conceived in a date, or I don't know whatever you want to call it, where again there is no sort of relation. So now we're coming out of relationship. So the first 3, there was a healthy relationship. Now in fourth one, you're just being conceived, but you don't really know much of the person as in a relation or as a partner. And as I said, to me the typical example really, there is so many teenage pregnancies which I guess you two might deal with or see lots of.
One night stand.
Second?
We call it a one night stand.
Okay, you got better word. I was just trying to avoid that. But it's again quite interesting, like someone couple of thousand years ago already talking about, so it's nothing new. Do you know, if you think like, this is a new thing, actually it's not new, it has existed. But it's just like part of, I guess, the humanity if you got something, it's just a natural attraction. Then he comes to the fifth one. He says, where you being forced. So in this one, actually, woman had no agreement or no acceptance or no approval whatsoever. Now he said the fifth one he was really talking about. He said is mostly actually in a relationship between a husband and wife, where the woman is not really accepting it, because he said because it's already a strong relation there, he can't put it under a rape or sexual abuse, because his social reasons are there. So he said then the fifth one we're talking here is a forceful sex where you get
Do
conceived.
you mean the man is forcing the woman, or
Yeah.
she's got pregnant and she doesn't want the baby?
No, it's more about sex really,
Okay.
you being forced. And I guess then in that way, as a woman, if you talk from the heart perspective, you would feel you don't really want that baby because of that memory that carries with it. And I guess this is what he's bringing. When we come to the end of it, that will open our new subject to discuss. And then the sixth and seventh, he really talks about the sexual abuse and the rape and all that situation where there is a serious sort of assault or I guess crime involved. But why he says at end of those seven, he said once a woman or the family has accepted the pregnancy, he said as a king, now he's talking about that to the king, so as a king it is your responsibility or your dharma that all the kids, regardless of how they got conceived, had equal opportunity and equal respect. So he said as that person, if you're governing, you want to bring that social equality in your country or the place you're looking after, that how the child has got conceived has nothing to do with who that child is. And I quite like that idea. This is why I like to share it, because it gives us such a sort of profound meaning that child has nothing to do with it. And again, I guess in like he Bhisma, when he was talking about, he does not really say about acceptance. He said, doesn't matter how it happened, once that child is there, once the conception is there, that child has every equal right to be into this world. And the child must be respected and loved in regardless of how the beginning, that has nothing to do with the child. In modern time, I guess we have a little bit more, don't we? We can say once we accepted it. And I do think it's such a great sort of like a attitude or concept that we can have, that we don't need to judge the child based on what is the background. And it's true, isn't it? The child has nothing to do with it. Oh, I will leave here on this one before I move to the next topic. I guess if anyone have anything.
I'm confused now. There were 7. I've got to number 5.
Yeah, so the 6 and 7, he talks about all the, which I did not really go in detail, I just left with few words. So he talks about like sexual assault, abuse and the rape and all that.
Okay, that's 6 and 7.
6 and 7, yeah.
So how is that different from being forced for number 5?
Yeah, or being forced because you are in a relationship.
So being forced by society?
No. So the first one was the pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, in this third one we were talking about, and this one is actually a sexual sort of control by your own partner.
Okay.
So in one we were talking before, there wasn't a sexual force, there was more of the pressure of our society, our family, and another thing few of you kind of said, yes, there is constant people keep asking. And especially in Indian society, it's a big thing.
So number 5 is when one partner is forcing the conception on the other
Yeah.
without actually raping.
Well, I guess the way Bhisma says, he doesn't really go in that. He said because there is a relationship, husband and wife, so that seems to be, people don't really consider that in generally, do they? Especially now, I guess we got the new law where we are accepting it, that you need permission of your own wife or your husband. But I guess in that time maybe it wasn't that clear.
It used to be, didn't it?
Yeah.
If you think
Yeah,
back,
it's quite
where once women were married.
It was just accepted. But it's interesting, he does bring that idea in. But again, our idea, what we're really trying to discuss about, not really of the 7 stages or the 7 ways. We really want to me, the essence of the whole thing he was putting together is, it's not what happened at the beginning. Once we accepted that, when the child comes into the world, the child has the equal right and must be loved and respected equally in all forms.
So was the whole point of this differentiation into 7 parts, was the point of that the teaching that everyone should be treated equally?
Yeah.
There wasn't any other idea that the way of being conceived somehow affects the baby?
No, in this point, no.
Okay.
I guess then we will come to the second point where he talks completely different. Here he was talking about when the child comes into the world, the child must not be judged based on that idea. Obviously, yes, it will have the effect, which we'll talk when we come to the next story. Okay, if you all sort of are getting some idea of it, then I can move on to the second confusing bit. Okay, so he discussed that. Then we come to the second point where he brings up, and this is again another sort of more like a real story, to be honest. In Mahabharata, that to me again it's a symbolic sort of a story or an event which shows that the state of our body and mind during the conception itself, during that sexual relation when we're having for the conception, that also has a huge impact on your pregnancy. Now the story is again about his grandson who went out for a battle and he got killed. But because he had no child, no sons who can govern the country, and so the mother said, "Oh, we have to find a different way." So in Vedic texts they do explain, they do come up with the various options, and sometimes I do wonder, so interesting that this is it surrogate parenting or the am I using the right word? When you ask someone to help for either
Surrogate.
yeah, that's the right word, isn't it? Yeah, surrogate mother or the father. So they had that concept again back in that time too. So he does mention, if you are in this situation, he said again, you can seek help of some wise people. Either it's from the family who is healthy, or you can look for other ways. I guess maybe in that time they did not have the 2 babies and all that. So they talked about more of the practical solutions, and in that practical solution they came up with the idea. So the king I'm talking about, who got killed into the battlefield, he also had an elder brother who left when he was very very young, or when he was sort of 5-6 year old. He left to be renounced and he became a monk. So they agreed, okay, he is the elder brother and he's a great rishi or sage, so he should be the right person to ask and help. So the king who died, he had 2 wives. So yeah, they summoned him, and obviously because his mother asked him, he could not refuse. He said, okay, I agree. So he went to see his brother's first wife. And when he went in, because he was just such a strong sort of sadhu or monk, and he had all the beard and all that, he just came out of forest, so was looking quite wild. So he said that he got quite scared, and to kind of come off the fear, she closed her eyes. Now I think these are really symbolic things. And so at the end, then she got conceived and she had a child, but he was blind. So the mother said, "Oh, that's not good. You're looking for a king." So she summoned him again, and this time he went to see the second queen. And obviously, again, because of his outlook and all that she also got very frightened. And sometimes when we get frightened, we get like really pale and we lose the blood circulation, cold and that. So then the second child, he was born with jaundice. He kind of also did not have the color, the skin pigment that we need. So that wasn't good either. So obviously he got summoned third time, and this time both the women decided like, look, we can't really take it. So they had the third woman also used to live with them, which was their maid, but sort of like in the same palace, and they tricked her like, oh, why don't you go and please rescue us. So then third time the maid, so her for maid, she took it as like a big privilege, and she thought, oh great, Rishi is coming, and she welcomed him nicely and happily and accepted that relation for conception. So basically out of 3 children they had out of this Rishi or this man, the third one was the wisest, healthiest and fittest one in any or every form. So Bhishma says here, if you look at the story, he was telling them, he said, obviously, if we can, when we're talking about conception, we need to bring love, we need to bring mutual understanding, we need to have that calmness of peace, and that will have a huge influence on the result or the outcome of your pregnancy. So hopefully that will bring us to the second point. Okay, anything that we have here, otherwise we can move on. And if you have anything to share from your experience, please do, okay? These are the mystic or mythological stories. I'm not sure if they have any significance, but it's great.
It's interesting, the fascination though with kingship, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the principle of kingship becomes overrides what we would prioritize as a kind of ethical element. Sort of bloody, it's so important. Let's help the king. Couple.
But as a yoga teacher, I can see that though in us, like, when you're going to actually teach those pregnant women coming to your class, you can see actually you do have some sort of authority. Same for me, like also like as a midwife, the women tend to really listen and respect that opinion. So they tend to tell us everything somehow, which I'm sure Deepika will come to that point, talk about what we should really engage and what we should not engage. But most people tend to like have that sort of trust or faith in you as a yoga teacher. It's like in our experience, if you ask Deepika or me, we tend to know about people when they're pregnant sometime before even their own partners. Because people do feel like, oh, you're my yoga teacher, and because I'm coming to classes or courses, I should tell you that should I come or not. So there is definitely a really sort of high respect or some sort of love in things you guys do. And I'm sure as a midwife you would have felt that too, like things they will come out and tell in a normal situation, even to the doctors, I would have thought they will think twice, shall I say it or not. But there is a completely different relation, because this relation is about like they will have a support, they will have something you will tell them to feel good about it or to find the way to deal with it. Trust. Okay, so then we move to the third level of the Vedic idea, the Vedic concept now. This is from where we have accepted and we're moving forward. Now in this idea, really he talks about, he said that once you are pregnant or conceived, then it is your duty or your responsibility to create or to transform that holistic environment around your lifestyle. Now in Indian sort of Vedic culture or the Hindu religion, they made it quite a ritual practice. That there are like several times you got to organize some singing, you got to organize some satsangs where people come and talk about these scriptures if you can read, then they say it's great to read Ramayana or Mahabharata or read Bhagavad Gita. These scriptures, they clearly mention that the worth to read during that time. So in this part, then he talks about, and then quite a few other Vedic scriptures, that during the pregnancy, it says what goes in your mind, what goes in your brain, will have some imprint, some influence, or some sort of genetic effect, the memory effect on the child that is growing inside you. So they talk very religiously that you should not be involved in so many things. I would not bring the list of them he talks about, but to me, like what we read, what we watch, what do we talk, what do we think during all that time will have a huge influence on the way your child thinks, the way the nervous system, the brain, all those memories going to develop. And he says in that time you can create a genius, well-educated child, or you can not give any education to him or her. Now, one of the really typical story we have from the Mahabharata, where this one of the guy, the son of Arjuna, the greatest warrior, great guy Abhimanyu, and in middle of the battlefield when they distracted Arjuna, and then they had this one of the formation of fight, the circular fight where none of them out of Pandavas or the army could actually go in and fight into it. So they have only two choices really: surrender or fight and die in it. And the Arjuna, who knew how to fight, the Krishna, who knew how to deal with it, they both were not there in that part of fight for that day. So the Yudhishthira, the eldest of the brother, the king, he was just like, oh, what we do? Either we go in it and let ourselves get killed, or surrender and accept the defeat. And at that point, this young boy, who was only 16, he came forward and he said, just to let you all know, I think I can handle it. And they were like, oh, how do you know? You never learned it. He said, no, I have learned it. So he tells the story, he said he learned it when his mother was pregnant, and I think the story I have read was a bit different, but I'll go with Deepika's choice. Some of the stories can be different. So anyway, so when she was pregnant, and the woman I'm talking, she was sister of Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna was telling her about, you always used to tell the stories about fight and different things he did. And that day when they both were talking to each other, he was telling this whole idea how this battlefield can be laid into this particular form, that not many people actually know how to deal with it. And then he was talking her through, this is what you do if you are in that situation, to kind of break through it. But he said what happened halfway through, when he was telling her all this story, he said, up to the time he took her or explained her how to get or break through the circles to get into the middle, she heard it and then she fell asleep. And because she fell asleep, old Krishna thought, oh, it's no point. So he left and he didn't talk through rest of the story. So he said, I know how to get into it. The only trouble is I don't know how to come out. And he did great job. He actually went through the whole thing, and even though yes he got killed, but he did great proud for himself. He was some of the greatest warrior from the Mahabharata or the whole Hindu history. We worship. And up to now we have a day of the death of his day. All the schools, the whole country just have the day of silence. But again, to me, that the story really tells us that all the things that we go through, all the education, all the imprints we put into that time, into the mother, into the environment, also feeds into the memory, into the behavior and the learning of the child. So in that Vedic into that yogic concept says, you got to invest your time, your energy into reading good things, the virtuous things, great stories, and all these epics and things. You should spend more and more time. And avoid events and stories that you feel that they will have some sort of negative input or imprint on your child. And this is one of the reasons in again into the Vedic, into the Hindu and yogic concept, we always say mother is always the first guru.
Isn't something about the vibration of the voice as well, in terms of if the mother is chanting, for example, that was a more powerful imprint than if she turns on a CD chanting. That the more, is it like the closeness of the mother's vibration is more powerful, say, than switching something on, or something heard at a distance, or on the telly, or something like that.
Yes, obviously, yes. If your mother is chanting or reading or singing or talking about things, that will have a much more stronger vibration than you listening it. To me, again, like really great or simplest example, you go on YouTube and play singing bowls and try to meditate on it or try to relax with it, or you lie down and someone actually playing them. Because in one there is a sound, there is no vibration in it, is it? Well, like in second one there is a vibration of it, and yes, it becomes, I would say, 100 times more powerful, intense, or holistic or therapeutic.
Baby's love mum's voice.
Mm.
My friend bought me actually they bought me this. I can't remember what it was called now. It was like a little necklace and it had like a ball on it and it made like a little noise. I couldn't really hear it, but it was supposed to be something that Betty could hear. And then afterwards, you were supposed to wear it just as a shorter necklace, so that when you were feeding and what have you, it still made, as it moved, it still made that sound of the soothing. I can't remember what it was called. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's what I used. I don't know what it was, but it was good.
No, but anything like that, it's great. Anything that helps you or any mother really, or as a family, to me, that's even better to create that healthier, that healing vibration, a thought, an idea, or the concept that's just going to enhance everything. And as a mother, if we can help them, or through how somehow we can give the education that happier you are, positive you are, good thoughts you're keeping in, that's just going to have a very positive influence or output on the pregnancy or on the child. So he clearly mentioned, like, reading all these great books, epics, and reading stories about these virtuous men and women that will start to plant some of these seeds of being virtuous, being brave, or being great.
That's yoga anyway, isn't it? That's really what we're supposed to be feeding our minds with these sort of things.
Yeah, well, in a holistic way, when we say, well, I practice yoga, to me, if we exclude last 30 years, they never really said that I practice yoga. If anyone said I practice yoga, they meant I practice the holistic yoga, which includes the greater aspect of our lifestyle, mindfulness, full responsibility, all the virtues of yamas and niyamas. The asana wasn't really considered as important as we do now. So it was considered important every time someone said, I practice Hatha Yoga. So even into the monks in India, there is a clear distinction. Like some of the Nath yogis we have, they always said, oh, we follow Hatha Yoga. But when people said, I follow or practice yoga, the asana, the physical aspect of yoga was very little of it. And yes, that's, I think, to me, when we talk about this aspect of a beautiful aspect of a life, we're really talking about the holistic idea behind, transforming not just the physical body but also our mental, emotional, and our spiritual being. And it's definitely, worth to have some of these things. And I think most of us, we can see, quite a few influence of parents on a child as they grow up. There is definitely a better inherited or the genetic transformation in lots of children that is already being, the seeds being put into them during the pregnancy or during that process. I'm not sure if you have any.
I'm just thinking through all my children.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh my god, it's been really hit and miss. And yeah, I can think, well, my middle child's age, me and his dad were not going through a good time at the time, and we were having lots of arguments, a lot of stress. I mean, on the scientific side, we know that cortisol can have effects on the brain of the fetus, the stress. But yeah, with Elvin's personality, and he has dyslexia, he had behavioural problems and things like that. He's absolutely amazing. I love him. He's got some really great attributes and everything. But I always wondered, I had such a stressful pregnancy, whether this had an effect on him, and just hearing all of this is, it's quite hard to listen to.
Because there is always, I don't know, for me, there are two places to look at. As to me, in this situation, as what we go through, there is some sort of reason behind that too. So it's not just as simple as we think. We can't just like say, okay, this is what happened, and do I put myself as a responsible in it? But again, to me, when I move to the next concept, which I'm not going to go into detail because that's all different idea, when we talk about the karmic influences of our life, then in that idea it also says that the baby, when they come into our life, they also come with their own karma, and they actually choose to be in that situation, or they're chosen by divine, let's say other way around, to be in that situation, to be able to learn and experience something they have to. So it's quite amazing. In Vedic system, I'm not sure how much truth it is, but again, another idea, I do love myself. It kind of makes you feel much better as a parent, and plus as a child. It says the parents never choose the child. So if you think I choose, my child is brilliantly genius, and I choose him or her, it says very disappointing. It said no. The child has chosen you as a parent. Now the story goes quite funny too. He says, think of yourself. He says, and then he was talking about soul. I'm not going to go on whole story either. So you're just hanging around up there somewhere, and he said you're just overlooking at all these mom and dads busy in making love to get pregnant, and he said out of them you can choose one. We said only trouble is you only see the ones who are suitable for your karmic life that you need to go through. So yes, in situations there is a reason that we all have to go through, and they have to choose. If to me, this idea we were talking about, that's really we talking if we have the control. Then yes, we should try to make changes, but many times as a yoga teacher, as a midwife, and also as a parent, we know that there is situations we go through, we just have to do our best.
So you're saying the children choose parents?
Yes.
And so you chose them because you're the best person for the child?
No, you are the most suitable person for them to live and learn their lessons. I guess if you make you happy, you can say best. But in a Vedic concept, they say you're the most suitable person for their growth. As yesterday I was saying, we talk about the cleansing, but it does not make you robust. It's still the child will have its own karma, he or she, and you can't avoid that. And obviously, as a family, then you all choose that there is a lesson for you as a mother, for child to have some issues, and for the child to have that, I guess, say like difficult pregnancy. So there is two of things. They have their own reason to be in that place.
I have a good friend whose first child had severe cerebral palsy, and what happened was Katie was very adamant that she wanted a home birth, and she was very well prepared, and she was mentally very well prepared. She had all the good relationship and everything. And in the sort of 11th hour, just during the delivery, Pema got in distress, and she was too far from the hospital. By the time she got to treatment, she had suffered brain damage, and all through the baby, and all the way through her life. Pema died about a year ago. She was about 21, and all the way through her life, Katie felt that it was her fault, that it was her stubbornness about having a home birth that laid Pema open to this danger. And then she told me that she went to see another friend who'd just said to her, she has her own karma. And when she heard, oh, Pema has her own karma, she said suddenly all this guilt and this that she'd been carrying just fell off her back. Because although she sort of was in the mindset to understand that, it hadn't clicked. It's like the kind of sense of I'm responsible for my child. I made this happen, was stronger than what she kind of knew, but it hadn't penetrated. And then just hearing somebody else say it, just like that, just released her. It was extraordinary, really, just to see that.
It does relieve pressure a little bit when you think like that. I've tried to.
No, it is true. This is how we got to look out at ourselves and people around us, and as it says, every child or every soul is born for their own reason and their own purpose, their own goal, and then the lifespan and everything. Some child maybe just have a breath in this life, but that doesn't mean that they haven't lived. They just lived their purpose, and it's time to move on to the next life. And as in yoga we always say, see, the death is not actually the end. It's our perception. It's just the opportunity for new beginning. And also the health issues, sometimes we say, oh, there is this problem we're born with. Actually, it's not a problem. In a bigger picture, there is an opportunity given, and with that, I think to me the beautiful thing is life has always given everyone some super skills. I've known lots of people like with the dyslexia and all this thing. They are genius in something. So is this a social perception that we think, oh, you can't do history, you can't do maths, you're not great in reading and writing, but does everyone need to do that? Do you know what I mean? So there is always something great in everyone.
It gives them their unique personality and their unique
It's our social perception that I guess we judge people based on how much they score in their math, science, physics, history, language, and some kids don't do it.
You want to talk about
Good. That's another good question Deepika brings in. Yeah, there's two different aspects actually. Quite interesting subject we talk about here, and it would be good to hear from you too while you're here to see where do you think it all begins. But yeah, one of the Vedic sort of idea says, it talks about the two process. So the one process is the process of death, and then the second part of it is the process of birth. So he talks about someone starting to plan how they're going to die. Okay, sounds very interesting, doesn't it? But I literally don't mean like going to Switzerland and doing what they do there. It's actually the life has its own path, and it prepares. So in a yogic, in a Vedic idea, it says it's not that something you die. There is actually around a 6-month process your soul will take, and in that process, as your soul is preparing its next place where it can be going. So that means in this 6-month process, so we're really talking from like 3 months plus after pregnancy, that the life, the karma, all that is being created around the soul is slowly or gradually start to move in. And it says that the proper entry of your conscious prana or your life force in that element begins somewhere around 6th or 7th month of pregnancy. And that's, I wonder, maybe that's where the nervous system or brain starts to develop. Sometimes when I think like scientifically about some of these ideas.
Nervous system, so it starts 3 months.
3 months, yes. That's great. Okay, so making sense, yeah.
We encourage parents to speak to their baby
Mm.
and communicate with their baby into the womb, kind of talking, singing, chanting, all of that, because that's stimulating their brain development. So it kind of.
And when do you think like the cortex part of our brain starts to develop this? There's something like out of the moon.
We encourage women from about 24 weeks pregnant, so it's about 5 months,
5 months of.
months, that they should be, communicating with their baby in some way, and around all of the family members as well.
Very interesting. It's kind of.
Even the dog, they should be used to all those sounds, because then they're comforting them before.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's very interesting. Like in a yogic way, they're talking about the life starts to enter from the pranic, from the energetic, conscious, and our samskara. They especially talk about the karmic life that they had into the previous life. They start to move in slowly from sort of 3rd month onward, and then between sort of 6th month, they say. It's interesting. I wonder, like maybe it's between 5th and 6th month somewhere, where the consciousness starts to move into that body. And it's interesting, maybe if you think scientifically, we're talking about the cortex part of the brain that start to develop, and that's where the consciousness really comes. While your spine is developing, that is carrying what we have, the instinctual or our reptilian fight flight memories. So that's sort of thinking, okay, life is slowly moving in, and then you have the cortex, which is our human, the human brain, or the more like the intellectual aspect of brain that starts to develop. So in a similar sort of way, the way Vedic practices explains that the life from the previous body start to move in sort of from the 3 months onward, and it goes into the phases up to the pregnancy. And it says, literally the consciousness, the soul can enter in. Now I'm talking the whole life itself. Now the soul from the previous body into the new body, it can be like sort of 8th or 9th month, sort of like towards the end of the pregnancy.
I have a question. It's slightly off topic, but it is within what we're talking about. What's your belief in terms of when a soul you die? Is there like a waiting period until it will come into its next life, or is it like an instant death? rebirth, death, rebirth.
Yeah, so in this idea, I think actually, that's why I'm mentioning, there is a 6-month transition, so there is no gap in between two actually.
So they're just going straight.
Yeah, because you're starting to leave this body in a very slow and long process.
Yeah.
So you start to leave, like your karmic body will leave you way before your intellectual body, then your consciousness body, and then finally your soul leaves the body. Which in a both ways actually, to me, when I think of scientifically, it has a huge sort of, I don't know, value in it itself.
Do all those bodies come back together, or can they sort of, go off with different bodies?
No, they do go in the same place, Anita. That's a dream. Seriously,
Just checking.
that's a dream. Honest, that's a dream. Can I go somewhere but not take my karmic body?
Can I just, sorry,
Yeah,
can I just clarify?
Yeah.
So you're saying at around 3 months,
Yeah.
approximately, and you guys, you say that's sort of when the nervous system development, and you're saying that's when the pranic life force.
Yeah, so then you start to move from the previous life into the next life. So in 6 months, you're dying from one body and you moving to live in a next body.
And then you're saying at around 5 to 6 months when there's cortexual development.
Actually, thinking about it was when the brain was developing mostly into the 5 and 6 months.
6, yeah.
And that's when you, from a yogic perspective.
Yeah, I was just trying to connect two of us together, basically. It's great,
It's
yeah.
very interesting. So that's when the sort of more consciousness comes in, and then around the 8 to 9 months.
Yeah, so that can be anywhere, like. Yeah, it doesn't like specific give number, but that can be anywhere from the 8th month onward up to just before the birth that
So
the
how
soul.
does that work with premature
Yeah, I was just
babies?
thinking that as well.
Yeah, but that again that's what we're talking about. That has its own reason to be in. So the soul is already actually working on that whole process, and the premature baby has her or his own reason between them and the parents to be in that situation. So it's all in that idea.
So part of the plan.
Because if you're saying not till 8 months, what if they're born at 7 months?
Yeah, but then
Do you know what I mean?
no, but in that way.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but we think that's where we're talking, Anita.
Yeah.
So there is a first thing I think, to me, when we're talking about this process, we're talking about the normal delivery, normal pregnancy, and normal death.
Okay.
Now there is also people die instantly, and then people being born instantly too. So there is a whole different thing. We're talking about the normal stream, okay? And there are unusual cases, and they have their own story.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, I would not look into is it the child or is it the mother or the parent. They have their own reasons to go through that process. So that's my answer. There is no like yes and no answer to that.
Well, it's a sort of answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's a two-way process, and it's all like very well planned. And then it talks a little bit, I think, to expand your question a bit further, really. It also talks about when it says, how does the soul knows where it's going to go?
Just another, when someone has sort of gone, when they're being kept alive, but they're not really keeping themselves alive, would you say that perhaps their prana had already gone if they're being kept alive by a machine?
Oh, the trouble in that, for me, like I would say yes, but then when we're talking from the yogic or the Vedic idea, in that time they never did that. So in Vedic time, actually, I don't want to call it suicide, and don't take me literally, please, okay? But the willful death was well accepted. So they would never approve, like if you had enough for various reasons, you to that point, the society, the family, the community, and the system, the education system approved it. If that's for the best of your health and well-being, let's get over it. I guess one of the reasons the Hinduism or the Vedic philosophy approved it, because they believe that when you're dying, it's not end, it's just So they believed if you can do with a new, better body, and as the Vedas explain, the yoga explains, Krishna explains, dying is just like you changing your clothes for your soul. So it's nothing to even fuss about in that idea. It says like as you change your clothes every day, your soul changes the body, and what is day for our clothes when we're wearing them is the day for the soul to live in this body. So from the soul, from the conscious perspective, it's nothing. It's just like, had enough of this, I need something better, something new. And in that new, yes, we choose that particular life, the body, to live, to experience things we need to. And that's really what explains why we're born with certain issues, why we're born in certain situations, because there is a lesson in it for us to learn. And I personally do kind of like that idea more or better than thinking I'm being cursed or being punished, or what I've done wrong.
It can change your whole outlook on life, can't it? Totally.
Because to me, it's more important to actually find how I can live my life better, how I can feel greater about myself, about my life, my friends, my surroundings, than finding the reasons, I guess, to feel bad, to feel guilty, to punish, to torture. Because that doesn't help you, doesn't help your relations, doesn't help whoever around in your life. It doesn't benefit anyone, does it? The only thing I do worry is, please don't make that an excuse of doing whatever you want to do. That's the trick in it, when we say like this, oh, it's okay. Nyandev was talking about like, I have nothing to be feeling guilty about. I can do anything I want to do. So that's
soul's watching, isn't it? So it's sort of like if you decided to go off track for a bit, I think, oh no, I think I've changed my mind. I'll go for this lot over here.
Yeah. If you lost the track, he says that's okay. Come back, but don't lose your track thinking it's okay to lose the track. It's the two different things, isn't it? Don't, as yesterday I was making fun, don't just decide, okay, Nyandev said, I must purify myself before I get pregnant. So, I haven't done anything, I have never taken drugs and drinking. So, let's go and get drunk, start taking drugs, start smoking, so I can follow what yoga says, I'm going to purify myself. You don't need to do that. There's a really nice story, and I'll finish with that. In Vedic time, where this ancient Rishi or Guru, he had quite a few disciples, and he was talking about purity, for cleansing. And then someone from the crowd raised his hand and said, so Master, I loved your teachings, but I'm wondering, am I really worth to be here? And the teacher said, oh, why do you think that? He said, oh, I know all these years, I'm 40-year-old, just talking about myself. I have done everything that you're saying is not good for my well-being or my evolution. He said, okay. He said, I have drunk. I can't remember a day where I haven't managed to drink. I have taken drugs, I have done smoking, I have done gambling, I have done all the things that you're saying that I should avoid for my evolution. He said, so, are you saying that I'm in a wrong place? It's not worth for me to be here, I have no hope. And Master said, of course not. You are in a right place, and this is why I'm talking, to make transformations, make changes. You are in a good place. Obviously, there was someone else sitting next to him, and I got a bit of naughty student in Anita. She always asks these funny questions. Just like, think of Anita sitting there. It's like getting confused, like, God, Nyandev said, it's fine, you're drinking, you're taking drugs and smoking. No, you are still in the right place. I'm sorry, if I was the one to say, Anita will be the first one to raise hand. So that another student, he raised his hand up, and he said, so Master, now he's talking about all this. So, you saying that for me it's fine now, because, I'm sure we all have these desires. He said, I always have these desires. I wanted to go out and try drugs. I wanted to go and try drinking. I wanted to try smoking. I wanted to try magic mushrooms and all that. But because of your fear, I've never done it. So he said, is it okay for me to go and do them? And Master said, of course not. That will be wrong. So, when we're looking at these things, we got to see which perspective we're looking at. Are we coming out of it or are we going in it? If you're going in it, then you say, come on, stop it, let's close the door. And if you're coming out of it, then what you do, you got to open the door. Anyone have anything else that you want to talk, share or ask? Please do, otherwise have a bit of break and then Deepika will guide you through another bit of sound work.